At the start of the drama, the main female lead, Zalman, is seen washing clothes in her village. At that moment, someone comes and tells her, I am from the Lin Group. My boss wants to break the engagement with you. My boss will give you 10 million for it. A live video was on with his boss, Lincian, who was watching this interaction from the village. Zalman says, tell your boss to first deposit 10 million into my account. Then we will see about the engagement. The man replies, but first you need to sign these papers. Hearing this, Zalman gets angry and beats the man before throwing him into the water. Meanwhile, Lincian says, who knows why Grandpa fixed this engagement for me in this village? On the other side, a boy was supposed to come to Zalman for a blind date, so her mother forces her to dress up and behave nicely in front of the boy's family. Zalman doesn't want to get married at all, so her mother makes her swear an oath to behave properly. Lincian had already arrived in front of Zalman's house to make the engagement-breaking deal. Villagers gathered to see him and his car. Then Zalman and her mother come out. Mistaking Lincian for the blind date boy, her mother asks, didn't your family come with you? Lincian thinks, this must be the problem Grandpa created for me. Zalman, looking at the boy's dress, thinks, he looks pretty high class. How can someone like this come for a blind date? Something is definitely up. Everyone mistakes Lincian for the blind date boy, so he goes along and says, yes, I am here for the blind date. The villagers happily start fixing their wedding date and leave them alone to talk. Both sit together and Zalman says, this blind date was arranged by my mom. You should go back to wherever you came from. Lincian replies, but I want you to marry me. Give me 2 or 4 kids and become my servant. Hearing this, Zalman gets furious and says, even if you were the last man on earth, I would still never marry you. Lincian thinks to himself, perfect, I want you to get so angry that you yourself break this engagement. The villagers watch them and wonder what they are discussing so closely. Then an auntie comes and says, what are you all doing here? Look, I have brought the blind date boy for Zalman. Everyone starts saying, if this is the blind date boy, then who is this guy? Zalman asks Lincian, who are you? He replies, I am the one who came to break the engagement with you. After this, Zalman takes Lincian to the police station and says, this boy entered our house without permission and told me he would give me 10 million to break the engagement. Lincian replies, this girl is lying. First of all, her family brought me to her house. Secondly, my grandpa and her grandpa made a deal for our engagement. But I don't want to be in a relationship with her, so I want to give her 10 million to break the engagement. Zalman responds, he is lying. Nothing like that happened. Meanwhile, the police had already checked Lincian's details and confirmed that he wasn't from any fake organization and had no criminal record. They labeled the issue as a misunderstanding and let them both go. Lincian then says, let's talk about the engagement. Immediately, Zalman covers his mouth with her hand and says, speak softly so that my mom doesn't hear about the engagement. Lincian replies, so you know how bad this engagement is for us. Anyway, think about it and let me know your decision tomorrow. I will come back tomorrow. Saying this, he gets into his car and leaves. At that moment, his grandpa calls him and says, I sent you to fix the engagement, but you're creating problems. Do you think the engagement decided by the elders is a joke to you? Lincian replies, I have an important meeting tomorrow, so I can't stay in this village for long. His grandpa angrily says, from now on, you're not the general manager of Lin Group. There's no need to return. Stay in that village itself. As per Grandpa's instructions, Lincian's friend had already prepared everything to leave him in the village. Meanwhile, Zhao Man, along with her family, was returning home from the police station and says, did Grandpa ever arrange my engagement? Her father replies, yes, when you were a child. Just then, they come face to face with Lincian. Zhao Man's father asks, are you the boy my father fixed my daughter's engagement with? Lincian says, yes, I am that boy. Can you tell me if there's any hotel nearby where I can stay? Her father replies, yes, the nearest hotel is straight down this road. As soon as Lincian hears this, he says, thank you, uncle, and leaves without hearing the rest of the sentence, that the hotel is 50 kilometers away. Later at night, we see the poor guy, tired and exhausted, coming back to Zhao Man's house. Feeling bad for him, Zhao Man's mother goes to prepare food for him. After eating, Zhao Man's father offers him the grandpa's room to stay in. As the father was cleaning the room, Zhao Man says, you take rest, I'll clean the room myself. As soon as her father leaves, Zhao Man and Lincian start fighting like cats and dogs again. Eventually, Zhao Man leaves the room without cleaning it, and Lincian, seeing so much dust in the room, sits on his suitcase and dozes off. In the morning, as soon as he opens his eyes, his first question is, where am I? Then he remembers the trouble he is stuck in. Anyway, he decides to break the engagement today and leave this place. Outside, the aunt who had brought the boy earlier starts fighting with Salman's parents early in the morning, asking why they rejected such a good boy. Seeing his parents being insulted so much, Salman throws dirt at the aunt and says, "How dare you talk to my parents like this?" At that moment, Lincian comes there and says to Salman, "I've seen enough of your family drama. When will you come with me to break the engagement?" Poor Salman doesn't know what to do. She is already dealing with the aunt bringing blind dates every day and her parents forcing her to get married. Thinking about all this, she suddenly gets an idea and yells, "Okay, fine, I'm ready to stay with you. I admit I wanted to break the engagement earlier, but now I don't want that." Lincian is shocked and asks, "What are you saying? Have you gone mad?" Zalman replies, "Please speak softly. I'll break the engagement, but for now, help me continue this drama. Otherwise, my parents will keep bringing new blind dates for me every day." Lincian says, "Absolutely not. Am I some kind of actor?" Zalman replies, "If you don't agree, I won't break the engagement with you." Hearing this, Lincian changes his mind and says, "The villagers already think we're engaged, so there's no need to bring more blind dates for your fiancé." Later, we see that the two start getting closer. Zalman even ends up cleaning the room for him. Lincian stands nearby, giving orders like, "Clean this and clean that." Though reluctant, Zalman brings a ladder to clean the cobwebs. Lincian helps by holding the ladder. Zalman struggles hard to remove the cobwebs, but Lincian insists he climb higher and clean better. Frustrated, Zalman climbs further, but her foot accidentally steps on Lincian's hand. In pain, Lincian lets go of the ladder. As a result, Zalman falls directly on top of Lincian. Both of them become very awkward, and at that moment, Zalman's mother enters the room. Seeing them in that awkward position, Zalman's mother assumes something else and quickly leaves the room. Later, Zalman notices that Lincian has developed a full-body allergy from the cobwebs and is itching badly. So she takes Lincian to her own room to apply medicine. Upon seeing the air conditioner in the room, Lincian comments, "The entire house doesn't have an AC, but your room does?" Zalman replies, "Yes, because I can't sleep without it." Lincian then says, "Please install an AC in my room too." Zalman replies, "Oh, mister, you're only staying here for a few days, not for a lifetime." Saying this, she starts applying medicine to Lincian's allergic areas. In his mind, Lincian thinks, if your words were as soft as your hands, it would have been great. Just then, Zalman yells, "If you don't take off your shirt, how am I supposed to apply medicine to the rest of the areas?" Embarrassed, Lincian reluctantly takes off his shirt. As Zalman applies medicine to his body, Lincian starts feeling something because of the touch and says, "That's enough, that's enough." He hurriedly put his shirt back on and left. The next morning, Lincian sits peacefully to have breakfast, but from a distance, Salman's friend Rainbow sees him and assumes he's a thief. Rainbow attacks Lincian, but Lincian turns the situation around and grabs Rainbow instead. Both think the other is a thief, and at that moment, Salman comes and stops them. Feeling embarrassed, Salman introduces Lincian to Rainbow, saying, "This is my fiancé." Hearing this, Rainbow is shocked and asks, "When did you get engaged?" Zalman awkwardly replies, "It happened during childhood." The next day, Lincian goes out jogging. By now, the entire village knows that Lincian is Zalman's fiancé. The villagers start giving him vegetables and other goods, asking him to pass them on to Zalman. Unable to refuse the way they insist, Lincian takes the items and thinks to himself, "The entire village knows Zalman, but this is becoming a problem for me." When he returns home, Salman's mother asks him to sit down. Upon removing him glasses, the mother notices his dark circles and asks, "Didn't you sleep last night?" Hearing this, both Lincian and Zalman feel embarrassed. In a flashback, we see that in the middle of the night, Lincian had woken up to go to the bathroom and accidentally saw Zalman taking a shower. Out of embarrassment and fear, Zalman punched him in the eye. Back in the present, Zalman's mother tells her to take Lincian to the field to plant seeds. However, we see that while in the field, Lincian sits in a relaxed position, as if on a summer vacation, while poor Zalman has to plant all the seeds by herself. Meanwhile, some of Lincian's office colleagues arrive to discuss work matters and ask, "How long will you stay in this village? Grandpa cannot handle the company alone." In a flashback, we see that before coming to the village, Lincian had a childhood friend who confessed her love to him. She had said, "If you marry me, your company will be at the top. But if you don't divorce that village girl, you know what I'm capable of doing." Rainbow was mischievously teaching him how to sow seeds in the field. Then, as soon as Zalman came with the tractor, She saw Lincian scattering the seeds randomly, which made her extremely angry, and she started chasing him with the tractor. Watching this, Rainbow was having a lot of fun because he knew it was done intentionally. At that moment, a girl came there, and seeing her, Rainbow got excited and shouted at Zhao Man, "Look, our friend Jingyuan has returned." Seeing Jingyuan, Zhao Man was also overjoyed. Later, Zhao Man cooked dinner for her friend. At the dinner table, Lincian sat between them like a third wheel. When Jingyuan asked about Lincian, Zhao Man didn't want to narrate a long story, and briefly said, "Consider him as my first love, and let's not talk about it now. Let's eat and enjoy instead." Here it was clear that Rainbow liked Jingyuan. During dinner, Jingyuan's earrings got lost. Later, when Lincian returned to his room, he found Jingyuan's earrings there. He suspected Jingyuan had left it there intentionally to gain attention. The next day, Rainbow invited Jingyuan to his shop and gave her an air purifier, saying, "You've come from the city, so this might be useful for you." Jingyuan happily thanked him. While leaving, Rainbow gave her the earrings, saying, "Zhao Man found these and gave them to me to hand over to you." Jingyuan thought to herself how foolish Zhao Man was. Meanwhile, Zhao Man was drying seeds with her parents, and they were enjoying themselves. On the other hand, Lincian was struggling to find a mobile network. Just then, Jingyuan came and said, "I've come here for you. I noticed you're allergic to dust, and I had this air purifier, so I thought it might be useful for you." Although Lincian didn't like this girl at all, he still thanked her and left. In a flashback, it was shown that Jingyuan had seen Lincian at a press conference and knew that he was the owner of a big company. Jingyuan had come to the village with a plan, thinking that if she married Lincian, all her dreams would come true. After a while, there was a strong storm and heavy rain. Lincian was worried about Zhao Man and her parents as they were still drying the seeds. In the torrential rain, the three of them were struggling hard to keep the seeds from getting wet. They were also falling down in the strong winds. At that moment, Lincian arrived, first protecting the seeds from getting wet and then going to her father. Later, Zhao Man was sitting in the hospital. Lincian came and said, "Don't worry, father has just minor injuries. He'll be fine after taking this medicine." Here, Zhao Man herself wasn't feeling well and suddenly fell on Lincian. She had a fever, so Lincian lifted her in his arms and took her home. He took care of her throughout the night. In the morning, Lincian started farming to help Zhao Man's family. Seeing this, Rainbow became emotional. Upon learning that Zhao Man had a fever, Rainbow ran to check on her and found that she was feeling much better. Meanwhile, Jingyuan disguised herself and went to Lincian, asking, "Can I help you? You look very tired." Lincian replied, "The way you're dressed, do you think you can help me?" Then Jingyuan pretended to be scared by a bug. Lincian said, "Even I get scared of bugs. You should go and ask someone else for help." Jingyuan kicked the bug away with her foot and left, thinking to herself that she needed to come up with a better plan to impress him. In the next scene, Lincian was taking bath while Zhao Man went to the bathroom. Since there was only one bathroom, both of them reached out for the same towel at the same time and saw each other. Zhao Man screamed loudly and was about to fall when Lincian caught her. In the process, his forehead accidentally touched hers, leading to a cute kiss. The scene turned extremely awkward, and Zhao Man quickly ran away. Lincian thought to himself, "Why did my heartbeat increase so much? Did I start falling for her again?" In the next scene, Zhao Man took Lincian to a secret place and said, "This is my secret spot, and you're the first person I've ever brought here." Lincian was surprised and said, "Did you build this all by yourself?" Zhao Man replied, "Yes, I want to create a fish pond here." Lincian then asked, "Is this why you don't want to leave the village?" Zhao Man replied, "Yes, but there are many other reasons too." As Lincian was observing the place, he accidentally pressed a button and water started flowing. Zhao Man explained, "This was designed to water the plants." While trying to turn off the switch, Zhao Man slipped and fell, but Lincian caught her. Both of them looked at each other in a way that showed they were started to like each other. On their way back, neither of them spoke due to the awkwardness. Lincian had picked a flower from the place, thinking of giving it to Zhao Man. However, before he could, a new character named Fang entered. Fang was Zhao Man's childhood friend, and both of them were very happy to see each other. Because of this, poor Lin Xian's plan failed, and he felt frustrated with Fang. Fang said, I'm here for a project to take beautiful photos of the village for a magazine. I need to do a shoot. Upon seeing Lin Xian, Fang asked, Who's this? Zhao Man was about to introduce him as a friend. But before that, Lin Xian said, I'm her fiancé. Hearing this, Fang didn't like it at all. Zhao Man, on the other hand, seemed to forget about Lin Xian after meeting her friend. After leaving the flower there, Lin Xian walked away. Later, everyone was sitting together having a meal. During this, Lin Xian kept burning with jealousy while watching Fang. After the meal, Fang went to his room and called a family member, asking, When will you return? The family member replied that it would take a few more days as he wanted to bring something valuable back. Fang was actually referring to Zhao Man because he liked her. Later, Fang was teaching Zhao Man skating, and Lin Xian became extremely jealous. Seeing this, that night, Lin Xian practiced skating alone, determined to learn it so he could teach Zhao Man himself. However, while practicing, he fell straight into a pit. At that moment, Zhao Man came looking for Lin Xian. Lin Xian tried hard to stay hidden, so that Zhao Man wouldn't find him. But Zhao Man called his phone, and it rang loudly. Hearing the ring, Zhao Man found him. Upon seeing the skating practice, Zhao Man understood everything and laughed at him. Annoyed and embarrassed, Lin Xian pulled himself out of the pit on his own. The next day, Fang went to the village for a photo shoot. Zhao Man got ready nicely because she was going to be the model for Fang's shoot. Lin Xian also got ready and accompanied them because he didn't want to leave Zhao Man alone with Fang. At the photo shoot spot, Rainbow and Jing Yuan also arrived. Poor Lin Xian kept burning with jealousy, watching them all work together. At one point, Zhao Man was posing for photos with Rainbow and Jing Yuan by the pond on the other side, while Fang and Lin Xian were on this side. After a while, Lin Xian asked, How long will this shoot take? Fang replied, Be patient, bro. Imagine if this camera falls. What will happen? This camera is more important than my life. While saying this, Fang almost fell. Lin Xian quickly grabbed the camera instead of Fang and fell himself. Later, Fang felt cold and Zhao Man was taking care of him. Seeing this, Lin Xian became extremely angry. The room Fang was resting in belonged to Lin Xian, but Zhao Man gave it to Fang for the day. Poor Lin Xian sat downstairs. During dinner, everyone was sitting together, and Fang was getting special treatment, which made Lin Xian even angrier. Even though Lin Xian couldn't handle alcohol, he took up a drinking challenge against Fang. Fang also liked Zhao Man, so the two started drinking. Rainbow left the room for some work, and the girls sat watching the boys' drama. Finally, Zhao Man got angry and snatched the glass from Lin Xian. Fang pretended to be drunk and was about to rest his head on Zhao Man's shoulder, when Lin Xian, completely drunk, collapsed onto Zhao Man's shoulder. Everyone took Lin Xian to his room and laid him on the bed. Zhao Man took care of him, while poor Fang and Jing Yuan looked at each other like starving souls watching a feast. Zhao Man asked them to go rest and was about to leave herself. But Lin Xian held Zhao Man's hand and said, When will this acting between us end? I can't understand which feelings are real and which are fake. Saying this, he fell asleep again. Hearing this, both of them started to guess something. Outside, Jing Yuan asked Zhao Man about this matter, and Zhao Man told her everything about their fake relationship. Jing Yuan then said, Today, I want to tell you the truth too. I've told you many times that I like someone. Actually, it's Lin Xian. To me, he's perfect. Hearing this, Zhao Man felt heartbroken. The next morning, Lin Xian went farming, where Jing Yuan came, and told him that Zhao Man had told him about their fake relationship. Lin Xian became stiff and thought, How could Zhao Man share our personal matters with her? As he was about to leave, Jing Yuan sighed, Now that there's nothing between you two, I want to tell you that I've liked you for a long time. Will you give me a chance? Lin Xian replied, That can never happen. Besides, I don't belong to this place. Inside, Zhao Man was standing and overheard this conversation. Later, Lin Xian came to Zhao Man, but Zhao Man spoke to him with a straight face. He asked, Since you've told everything to Jing Yuan, do we still need to keep acting? She replied, Yes, of course, we do. Both of them had started to love each other, but neither could confess their feelings. They just silently looked at each other. At that moment, Zhao Man's mom came and said, Our dog is missing. Zhaoman and Linxian went into the forest looking for the dog, where they found it along with a small puppy. The dog had gone this far to save the puppy. Both of them were extremely tired, so Zhaoman took him to her secret place. As night fell, Zhaoman brought some mushrooms from the forest. Linxian was cooking soup with them and was very hungry, so he ate some mushrooms before Zhaoman returned. After a while, Zhaoman came back and noticed that Linxian was acting a little drunk. She realized he had eaten the toxic mushrooms. She got worried that it might cause food poisoning. She took him to sit in the hut, thinking that once he felt better, they would return home. However, Linxian had no control over himself and started saying, "You're so cute." Finally, he rested his head on her shoulder and fell asleep. He woke up again and said, "I don't like it all that you hang out with Fang," and then kissed her. Zhaoman was completely shocked by his actions. Linxian then rested his head on her lap and fell asleep. The next morning, when Linxian woke up, he asked, "Why am I sleeping here?" Zhaoman replied, "Don't you remember what you did last night?" On the way back, both of them were silent. Linxian thought, "Should I propose to her?" While Zhaoman thought, "Why is he so quiet? Why isn't he saying anything?" After reaching home, Zhao Man was cooking and Jing Yuan was there. Zhao Man was smiling to herself, remembering the events of last night. Seeing this, Jing Yuan felt sad. Later, everyone had dinner together. Everyone was assuming that Fang would leave the next day, but Fang couldn't leave without confessing his feelings to Zhao Man. Fang said, "My shoot is still not complete. I need to stay a few more days." Zhao Man decided that Fang would stay in Lin Xian's room from now on. Hearing this, Fang happily went to bring his belongings. At night, Fang was sleeping in a weird way like an animal, sometimes swinging his hands and sometimes kicking with his legs. Because of this, poor Lin Xian had to get up and go outside. He called Zhao Man outside and made her listen to Fang's snoring. Lin Xian said, "With so much noise, nobody can sleep." Then Lin Xian sat in Zhao Man's room and said, "If I can't sleep, I won't let you sleep either. If you don't want this, then by morning, kick Fang out of the house." Zhao Man said, "Okay, I'll think about what to do." She turned to the other side and fell asleep. A while later, when Lin Xian heard no sound, he checked and saw that she had fallen asleep. So he covered her with a blanket and was about to leave, when Zhao Man grabbed him. He tried to free himself, but then thought, why waste energy on this? And he lay down there. The next morning, when Zhao Man woke up, she saw Lin Xian and got startled. She said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing in my room?" Lin Xian said, "Think about it yourself." She remembered everything and realized that it was all her fault. Feeling embarrassed, she covered her face. Lin Xian said, "Before your mother sees us, I should leave." Fang saw him coming out of Zhao Man's room and got very jealous. Lin Xian said, "Thanks to you, I finally slept well last night." Later, while Fang was taking pictures of Zhao Man during farming, Lin Xian kept annoying Fang. Seeing them argue like children, Zhao Man was surprised. Then she remembered that she needed to get some farming bags from Rainbow's shop, so she sent both of them to get them. However, Lin Xian purposely made Fang lift all the bags. Poor Fang got completely worn out. Even on their way back, they fought over who would sit in the front seat. At night, to ensure that Lin Xian didn't go to Zhao Man's room, Fang stayed awake watching him and he fell asleep right there while watching. The next morning, Lin Xian's assistant came and gave him some papers. The assistant asked, "What have you decided? Will you keep your grandfather's promise?" The girl named Lubin called Lin Xian and threatened, "If you don't break off your engagement with that girl and marry me, I will cancel my contract with your company. You know how much loss your company will suffer." On the other side, Fang was sitting sadly. Jing Yuan came and said, "It looks like you've given up on Zhao Man." Actually, Jing Yuan knew that Fang liked Zhao Man, so if Zhao Man started dating Fang, Jing Yuan's path to dating Lin Xian would become easier. Jing Yuan added, "You shouldn't give up like this." Fang replied, "If I propose to her, do you think she will say yes?" Jing Yuan said, "I don't know about that, but if you don't express your feelings, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Fang said, "I'll think about it," and left. At that time, Lincian's jacket and phone were left there. Lubin's call kept coming on the phone. Jing Yuan answered the call. Lubin said, "When will you break up with that village girl? If you don't, watch what I'll do to your company." Jing Yuan quietly listened to everything and understood that if Lubin's words weren't followed, Lincian's company would go bankrupt. Jing Yuan thought, who could this girl be? Then she remembered that one day she had seen Lubin dealing with Lincian. She realized that Lincian's company was in a crisis. That means he's not as rich as I thought. Meanwhile, Rainbow came and gave Jing Yuan a dress. It wasn't an ordinary dress, but a very expensive one. While walking on the road, Jing Yuan saw the bill for that dress in the dustbin. The price was written on it, which was very high. The company's name was also mentioned. She called the company and found out that Rainbow had bought the dress 2 days ago. Jing Yuan wondered, Rainbow isn't that rich. How did he buy such an expensive dress for me? Meanwhile, Fang took Zhao Man aside and proposed to her. Hearing this, Zhao Man was shocked and replied, "Sorry, I have always seen you as a friend. I can never love you." Fang asked, "Then do you like Lincian?" Zhao Man replied, "Yes." Lincian, who was standing at a distance, heard everything. Hearing Zhao Man's answer, he felt very happy. On the other hand, Fang felt heartbroken. Zhao Man, without saying anything else, started to leave. Then, seeing Lincian in front of her, Zhao Man smiled and walked towards him. Fang also smiled a little while watching them. Zhao Man asked Lincian, "What are you doing here? Let's go home together." She was about to leave when Lincian held her hand, pulled her close, kissed her forehead. After this, Fang wrote a goodbye letter to Zhao Man and left the village. The next day, Zhao Man was happily cooking. Lincian is farming in the fields. However, Lincian's hands hurt from overworking. Zhao Man fed him and scolded him, saying, "You don't need to work so hard." Meanwhile, Grandpa came to the village with his assistant. He went alone to Zhao Man's grandpa's grave, paid his respects, and talked about their old friendship. From his words, it was clear that the two grandpas were very good friends. As Zhao Man was returning home, she saw Grandpa and came over. A flashback showed that Zhao Man already knew Grandpa from before, but she didn't know it's Lincian's grandfather. Zhao Man took Grandpa home. On the way, they saw Lincian in the fields. She called him over and showed him to Grandpa. Lincian was shocked to learn that Zhao Man already knew Grandpa. Before saying anything, Zhao Man took Grandpa home. At home, they were chatting and having lunch. Lincian came and asked, "Grandpa, you're here?" Zhao Man was surprised to learn that this was his grandpa. Zhao Man was stunned, realizing her parents also knew about this, but forgot to tell her. Lincian explained everything to her. Grandpa was very happy with their relationship. Later, Grandpa told Lincian, "I sent you to this village so you could get to know Zhao Man better and see what a good girl she is." Lincian said, "I love her." Grandpa replied, "That's great. Even though our company is in a little crisis right now, don't leave Zhao Man. Take some time, and everything will be okay." Then he left. At night, Lincian's hand was hurting, so Zhao Man applied medicine to it. They became romantic and they kissed each other. The next day, Jing Yuan and Rainbow were returning after watching a movie. They were dating now. Rainbow said, "Lincian is going to propose to Zhao Man, so he asked me to get balloons, lights, and decorations from the shop." Hearing this, Jing Yuan got worried, thinking, Lincian's company will go bankrupt. If Zhao Man marries him, her life will be ruined. I can't let this happen. Jing Yuan called Lubin and met her, informed her that Lincian was planning to propose to Zhao Man. Lubin said, "I'll give you 5 million and a good job in the Lin Group if you break their engagement." Even though Jing Yuan was thinking about her friend's best interest, hearing about the money aroused greed in her, and she agreed to join hands with Luvan. At night, Jing Yuan and Rainbow decorated Zhao Man's secret place beautifully. Rainbow said he was in a relationship with Jing Yuan. Hearing this, Lincian became shocked, because just 2 days ago, Jing Yuan had proposed to him, and now she is in a relationship with Rainbow. Lincian thought that Jing Yuan wouldn't hurt Rainbow's feelings. At that moment, Jing Yuan came with wine for them and apologized to Lincian for whatever she had said in the past. At their request, Lincian took a drink. After some time, both Lincian and Jing Yuan got drunk. Rainbow said, "I'll drop Jing Yuan home. You go home soon." But later, it was seen that Jing Yuan didn't go home and wasn't drunk either. She came back, removed her jacket, and sat with Lincian. The next morning, Rainbow woke Lincian up. Lincian didn't remember anything from last night. Meanwhile, Jingyuan went to Zhao Man and told her that Lincian was with her last night. When Zhao Man didn't believe her, she showed her photos. Zhao Man was completely shocked. At that moment, Zhao Man's mother came there and saw the photos too. She told Jingyuan, "I've always loved you like my daughter. How could you ruin my daughter's life like this?" But Jingyuan didn't say anything. Zhao Man told Jingyuan to leave the house. At that moment, Grandpa came there. Before he could understand anything, Lincian happily came to take Zhao Man away, but Zhao Man's mother showed him the photos. Lincian couldn't understand when this had happened. Lincian became furious at Jingyuan and tried to explain to Zhao Man, but Zhao Man broke off their engagement. Grandpa had nothing to say because all the evidence was right in front of him. He told Lincian to leave. Lincian couldn't believe that Zhao Man didn't trust him and trusted her friend instead. Grandpa hit him with a stick and told him to leave. The next morning, when Zhao Man woke up, she thought she saw Lincian in front of her. But in reality, Lincian wasn't there. Zhao Man felt very sad. Meanwhile, Lincian rejoined his company like before, but he kept remembering Zhao Man over and over. He couldn't focus on his work. Then the assistant came with a project, which was a fish pond building project for Zhao Man's village. Lincian rejected it without even looking at it because although he loves Zhao Man, he is angry with her. He even blacklisted Zhao Man's project so that she cannot submit it anywhere. Meanwhile, Zhao Man was very angry. She was working in anger, and Rainbow told her to stop and said Lincian was going to propose, which made her calm down a little. Then she started working again. Rainbow said Lincian is not a bad person. There's some misunderstanding going on. Then Rainbow met Jingyuan and said, "What happened? I was going to drop you at home." Jingyuan replied, "Whatever I did it for Zhao Man's good. You won't understand." Rainbow said, "No, you never understood my feelings, nor did you understand the feelings between both of them. You have completely changed, and there is no trace of your childhood friend. I know whatever misunderstandings were created that night. You created them." Rainbow left from there. She felt very bad. Sometimes he thought about Zhao Man and sometimes about Lincian, but setting emotions aside, she called Lubin's company to check which department her job resume had been submitted to. They told him that there was no resume file for him, meaning Lubin used her to get her work done. Meanwhile, because it was raining heavily, the two friends got very worried about Jingyuan. They called her to check if she had safely reached the city, but they couldn't reach her on the phone. Jingyuan's car had an accident. After a while, the two friends hurried over and saw Jingyuan's car, which was in terrible condition. Jingyuan looked at them weakly and saw how desperate her two friends were for her. Then Jingyuan was admitted to the hospital. When she regained consciousness, she apologized to Zhao Man and told the truth that Lincian is the president of the Lin Group, and his company is in crisis. It will soon go bankrupt. I didn't want you to get involved with him and ruin your life. That's why I took those fake photos. I know I did wrong. Then Zhao Man said, "So that means Lincian was going to propose to me that day?" Rainbow said, "Yes, he was, and we both decorated your secret place." Hearing this, Zhao Man left for that place, and seeing it, she got even sadder. She felt bad that she didn't trust Lincian. The next day, Zhao Man went to Lincian's company, but since there was no appointment, she had to wait inside. Assistant told Lincian about Zhao Man, but he says that he is busy, and then Zhao Man waits all day, while Lincian is having a press conference on an agricultural project. During this, a video plays on the screen where Lincian is making a deal to break off his engagement with her, and this affects her project. Because of this, Grandpa scolds him and tells him to make his engagement public with Zhao Man. That night, Zhao Man meets Grandfather. Zhao Man says that she misunderstood Lincian and wants to apologize. The grandfather asks if she still loves him, and she says yes. So, the grandfather calls the assistant and tells him to place Zhao Man in the ecological development position. The next day, Lincian gets very angry. The assistant says that this is the grandfather's decision. Then, the assistant comes and tells Zhao Man to sit in this seat. Once everyone leaves, Zhao Man apologizes to Lincian for doubting him. But he says that personal matters aren't allowed during office time. She stays quiet, and then she comes to show the project file to Lincian. After checking the project, Lincian likes it a lot. She starts explaining the project to him so that Zhao Man can't take her eyes off him and says that during these days, she missed him a lot. At that moment, Lubin arrives and introduces herself as Lincian's fiancé, which makes Zhao Man feel like the ground is slipping beneath her, and she asks Lincian about this. He agrees, which makes Zhaoman more upset, and she leaves outside. Lubin asks, "What is that girl doing here?" He says that she is the granddaughter of his grandfather's friend. She says Linxian to not fall for her. "Now come with me for dinner," she says, and Linxian follows her. Outside, Zhao Man is still in shock, seeing them go together, feeling hopeless. In the next scene, Zhao Man is working overtime outside when the assistant asks why she is working outside and not inside. She says she doesn't want boss to see her face, so she is comfortable working here. After some time, Zhao Man falls asleep. Linxian sees her from afar. He comes to her and helps her complete the project. At that moment, Zhao Man wakes up and sees Linxian by. She says, "Are you helping me?" He says, "No," but sees that the project is complete. Linxian quietly leaves, and Zhao Man happily thinks that he still loves her. The next day, during the meeting, Zhao Man is nervous to explain the project. Then Linxian signals her to relax, and she explains the project in a free mind, which everyone likes. The investment deal for Linxian's company is signed. The next day, there is a project meeting at the company, but since Linxian does not come, Zhao Man gets worried and asks the assistant about it. The assistant says that he will not come because he is getting engaged to Lubin. Upon hearing this, Zhao Man quickly leaves to stop him, but the guard does not let her in. She shouts and says, "You told me you love me? Then how can you get engaged to someone else?" Linxian smiles and tells her to come inside. She finds that there is no one there. Linxian gives her a file, and she becomes very happy because her village's agricultural project received a 200 million tender. Because of the company's progress, everyone celebrates at the company, where Zhao Man drinks a lot. Being drunk, she talks arrogantly, and everyone around listens in shock. Linxian tells her to be quiet, but she refuses and proposes to him. Linxian takes her outside and says, "You are drunk, so go home." She says she is not drunk and stands in the rain asking, "I'm asking you the last question. Will you marry me?" He runs and kisses her. The next morning, they wake up and they both act like a lovely couple. Zhao Man asks, "Then what about Lubin?" and calls her. She says, "I heard you got a 200 million tender. Does that mean you will not get engaged to me anymore?" Linxian says, "No, I will marry only one person, and that's Zhao Man." Zhao Man says, "Yes, you will never bother us again," and ends the call. Then, they start romancing again. Meanwhile, Rainbow and Jingyuan have also got married and are living happily together. They say, "Today Zhao Man is coming to the village, so we will have dinner together tonight." Meanwhile, Zhao Man and Linxian have opened a company in the village for their agricultural project. With that, the drama ends here. So friends, I hope you liked this drama. If you liked it, please like and comment to let us know.